Hi, welcome. In this video, I'm going to go over the student assignment for program 9. So let's get started. So I'm going to download the PDF, the code here, the student code, and sample output. I think the sample output is also on the PDF, but anyway, let's just go over the assignment quickly. So if you're not familiar with the assignment, my recommendation is to please look at the other video. So I do have an overview of the assignment. You can work with two people. My recommendation is that one of you does student and the other one does the customer. And then you can work together and help each other. And hopefully that'll help you guys to understand more about all of the features that are in this program. Structs, an array of structs, managing data, going through an array, a menu program. There's a lot of stuff in this assignment. There's not any file processing in this assignment. So be sure to look at the overview of the instructions, and then this video is going to be on the student part. So this is just focuses on the student. You're going to, if you're going to work on the student, you're going to have a menu that's going to have these options. You're going to print your entire student list. You're going to print the information for one student. You're going to be able to set the index of the student that you're going to calculate the grade for. Once you set that, you can continue to add points for that current student, calculate the average for that current student, and there's also going to be an option to add another student to the end of the list. So your student is going to be made of a struct student. It'll have 2 character arrays, a first name, a last name, 2 integers, a unique ID, and a count for the count of how many grades you can use to calculate the average. It'll have 2 doubles, the total of the points, and the average. And all of these are going to be fields in the student. So you're going to start with 5 valid students, and then you're going to add all the features. These are the functions. We will add these functions to our assignment one by one as we go through this video, and then we have the sample output. So the sample output, please look at it so you understand what you're going to do. I'm going to be adding 5 students to the list. So when I select P, I have students that are already added to the list. So P will select and print those students that are on the list. When I select O, I have to pick an index. If I have 5 students in the list, my index goes from 0 to 4. So when I print it out, I have to pick the index. When I pick the index, it'll print which one of those students onto the only one student. I cannot pick an index that's out of range, so I'm going to have some kind of loop to control how many, the index that is in range. If I try to select A, I'm prompted to select S because I need to pick, just because I printed one student, that doesn't mean that's my selected student. I need to use S to select which student. So if I try to add points, I first need to select the index of the student that I'm going to be adding the points. Same thing with C. So I do, finally I pick S. It prints the whole list out so I can decide which index I want. So then I pick my index. The index that I picked was 2. So then it just prints that information again just so I know which one I have now selected. So this is the one I'm going to add points to, Stanley Steamer. So when I select A, I'm just giving some information on the screen. You can choose how you want to, the more information you give the user, the easier it is to understand. So the last name is Steamer, the student ID, but I'm not going by the ID because that adds a whole nother level of having to search for the ID. I'm just going to go by the index. All right, then I have to add a grade. Of course, this is based on your other program 5. So if I do put a grade out of range, it's not going to let me enter a grade that's out of range. And then I add some more points and then add some more points and then I calculate. And then if I print my list again, you will now see that Stanley Steamer now has the information about the grades because I've added some grades for Stanley Steamer. keep going. And to add a new student to the list, I am going to have to enter the ID and the information. And then if I print it, you will see that the new student has been added to the end of the list and then queue to quit. So this is just an overview of the output to give you some, to make sure you understand the program. You don't need to submit an algorithm for this assignment. So please do not send an algorithm for this assignment, but you should plan your algorithm like we've been doing all semester so that you'll have a better, working on your code and understand what the program is. This other one is Sorgente Student, so I've downloaded that. This is code I'm giving you that is working code for program 5. So the next thing I want to do is go through this and make sure that it works. So this is not program 9, this is program 5. So this is my version of program 5. It has 4 programmer defined functions, a greeting function, a display menu function where it displays the choices. This does not have all the choices yet. Obviously, this only has the add, the calculate, and this is start over with a new student. So N is going to be different now, and Q to quit. So this is working code, hopefully. We're going to try it in a minute and make sure that it works. And then I'm going to go through this code, and then we're going to transform this code one feature at a time to change it into program 9. So let's get started. So first things first, let's make sure that this works. So it builds, that's a good sign. So now let's run it. All right, so this is my grade calculator. I enter an ID for the student. Okay. So this is program 5. So hopefully you've all done program 5 and we will go through this in a minute. I can add points. If I go out of range, then it asks me to add points that are in range. I can add more points and then I can calculate the average and I can start over, add a new student, add points. Oops. Add more points. If I enter something that's not expected, it doesn't recognize it. Calculate the average for that other student and quit. So this is working as expected. So let's just go through this code to make sure we understand it. And then in the next video, we will take this code and add all the features for program 9. But this is a very good review for your final exam. Your final exam is not going to focus on input-output parameters, but it is going to focus on functions. So we have 4 programmer-defined functions here: the greeting function, the display menu function, the add points function. This takes in the points and it takes in the ID. The ID doesn't have anything to do with it other than you can use the ID to prompt. So it's nice to have the ID to say, oh, please add the points for the current ID. It adds, you get the points that you want to add. It adds those points and returns the new points. Then you have the calculate average. This takes the points and the number of points that have been added. So obviously we're going to divide points by the count. You want to make sure that count is not 0 because dividing by 0 is illegal. And it takes the ID just for the user experience. So let's trace through the code. When you start executing, you start at the main function. I initialize my points to 0. I initialize my count to 0. I have a character for my menu and I have an ID. Greet the user. So when it comes here, it's going to jump out of the main function and into the greeting function. The greeting function is going to explain everything about what's going to happen in this program, expectations, and then after it executes the greeting, it's going to jump back here into the main function and go on to the next instruction. The next instruction is to ask and get a current ID. So this is the current ID of the student that we're currently going to do the calculations for. And then we're going to call the display menu function. The display menu function, we jump out of main into the display menu function, you display the options, you declare a temporary character, scan in that character, and return that character. That character, this data type of menu needs to agree with the return type of the function. So this is a character. The function will return a character. We're using scanf. This is not a pointer, so we have to be sure to use the ampersand. And we're going to return a character. So this display menu function, when it comes back to main, whatever character the user has entered would then be assigned to this variable called menu. And as long as they did not enter a Q, so if you look at this, like, it's not possible for capital Q does not equal Q and lowercase q does not equal Q if one of those is a Q. So if they enter a Q, then this loop is going to stop and you're going to say goodbye to the user. If they enter anything other than a Q, you're going to go inside of this loop. If they enter an A, we're going to add points. If they enter a C, we're going to calculate the average. If they enter an N, you're going to start over with a new student. And if they enter anything other than a Q, A, C, or N, you're going to print not recognized. So this is a very clean menu. You get your character here. You make sure it's not a Q. If it's an A, we're going to add points. We're going to jump out of here and add points, which we'll do in a minute. Else, if they enter a C, you're going to calculate the average. Else, if they enter an N, you're going to reset everything and get a new ID. And if they enter anything other than a Q, A, C, or N, you're going to print it's not recognized. Now we are still inside of this loop body. So this right here is the initialization for the while loop. This right here is the test for the while loop. And then this right here is the update for the while loop. So you're going to do whatever letter they enter, and then you're going to call the menu function again for the update. And it'll jump again here down to the menu function, declare the character, get the character, return it back here, assign it to menu, and then we're still inside the loop body. So it'll go back up here and test. Now let's go through all of the options based on what you enter. If the user enters an A, we're going to jump out of here to the add points. So points at the beginning is a 0, but if after you've added points, obviously it's going to add more points. So we're going to jump out into the add points function, go down here. So the add points function is going to declare its own points. This is a pass by copy or pass by value, and it's going to get assigned that value. It's also going to make a copy of the ID so we can print the ID onto the screen. You notice that it uses this points variable inside of the function. It also uses the current ID variable inside of this function. Those are local variables for this function. We ask the user to enter points. These are the points we want to add. If the user tries to enter something that is less than 0 or greater than 100, it's just going to keep going. So it must be in the range that, so if the way you read this is if it's less than 0 or it's greater than 100, you're going to go back and ask again until you finally get something that's in the right range. Once you get something in the right range, you're going to add it to the points that came in here and take that result, which is a double, return it back, and it will get assigned to points. So you're going to add the points, and then you're going to add one to count because you need to, each time you add points, you're going to add one more to count, and then so you can calculate the average. Then we have our calculate average function. So you could keep adding points and adding points. You just keep adding A. And then we have our calculate average function, which you're going to jump out of the main function into the calculate average function. The calculate average function is going to declare its own local points. It's going to also declare and make a copy of the count and declare and make a copy of the current ID. So if the count is 0, you don't want to do any math by, oh, this is spelled wrong, but that's okay. You don't want to do divide by 0, so you're going to check count. If the count is 0, you're going to say you have not entered any points yet, so be sure to select A from the menu. If the count is not 0, which then you can start to do the math. So here you're going to calculate the average and print the average onto the screen. If you notice that this is a void return type, so therefore it's not going to return anything. It's just going to calculate and print the average onto the screen. So hopefully you have a good understanding of this code here. And in the next video, we're going to start modifying the code and changing it into program 9.